Melinda, thank you for joining us in from the South, understanding what is happening now in the Middle East. What can you tell us? What is important to keep in mind as we see these attacks unfolding at the moment?
I think the main characteristic of the attack is the objective, and the objective is to strike down the Iranian revolution, the Islamic revolution of Iran. They will tell that it's a retaliation war, that it is against the nuclear facilities of Iran. The main object is to take down the Islamic revolution. So the next days and next week will be absolutely essential to see if the people will go in support of their revolution. We have seen manifestation on the streets, people going out in support of the revolution. So I think that it's a good sign, but really what is at stake is taking the Islamic revolution, which is a really great anti-imperialist force in the region.
Melinda, just going outside the region for a minute, how does this impact the rest of the world? There's been a lot of speculation about the role that the United States is playing. Also, some contradicting statements between Marco Rubio and Donald Trump regarding their position on these recent attacks in Israel. How do you see this taking place at a wider level?
Well, on the side of the United States, effectively, there has been some contradiction on the state. For example, if we remember that when Mike Waltz, the head of the national security, he has discussions with Israel and he wanted to help them to make strikes and against Iran. And when Trump discovered it, he moved him to the United Nations. So it was a way of saying, no, we are not going that way. But then Trump has a very wicked way of seeing what is a negotiation, and he actually believes that striking Iran is a way of giving more force to the Israel and the United States sides on the negotiation, which is completely untrue, and it's a complete misreading of the negotiation and the way Iran acts in the region. So we are on the side of the United States with some contradiction inside, but we have seen also Donald Trump on Fox News today saying that United States will help Israel in case of Iran retaliation, which would obviously occur, and it has already begun. So United States will be involved in that war. They always are involved in war. The Ukraine war is almost finishing, so I think that they are just following to the next one, which is Iran. On the part of the European country, they will probably follow the United States. And what is to see is the reaction of the BRICS countries, because I believe that everybody wants to see what happened with the Islamic Revolution and to see that it has the force to endure what will happen on one side. And the third element is the regional aspects. So we have seen countries like Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and other countries condemning the strikes. So there are, we can see the efforts, the diplomatic efforts of the Iranian revolution having results, and they have the support, at least at the diplomatic level, of the regional countries. Also, Pakistan has been strongly condemning the strikes. So this is what is on the picture today.
Now, Ermelinda, this is not the first time that Israel and Iran are exchanging direct fire. Also not the first time since the beginning of the ongoing genocide in Gaza. Is this one different in any way? What should we expect in the coming days? Is this the beginning of a new stage of the conflict in the Middle East?
Yes, I think it's the beginning of a new stage. The thing is, this strike that began yesterday is the biggest one. Is way, way bigger than the two precedents that Israel has taken against Iran, which were not that huge. So in that case, it's really important strikes, and they have been killing at least 12 and probably more high commanders and high-level institutional persons, and especially they were were targeting the one who were the closest to Ayatollah Khamenei. So it is clearly they're clearly wanting to decapitate Iranian revolution on that way. So this is one thing. The second thing is that some of the strikes has been launched from the Iranian soil. So we have seen, for example, with the assassination of Ismail Haniyeh on the day of Pezeshkian became president and the official day, but this is way bigger. So bigger strikes and some strikes inside from inside the Iranian territory. Clearly, Iran is stating that it's an existential threat. So they really feel that it's not only some kind of pressure, but really they want to end with the Islamic Revolution, and they understood it.
And of course, a lot of the analysis has to do with the capacity that Iran now has to retaliate and to respond and to defend itself. And one of our correspondents was just telling us about the impact that the Iranian attacks are having on some key areas in Israel, meaning that they were able to overcome Israel's famous anti-missile system. How are you seeing, how are you evaluating these Iranian attacks in terms of the impact that they may have in Israel?
Well, for the moment, the strikes have only begun, so it's difficult to evaluate it. What we know is that Iranians have hypersonic missiles, which no a battery of anti-aerial battery defense can stop. So they have an advantage of that on that level. They also have another advantage is that Israel is called one single bomb country, so it's easy to destroy because it's very small, while Iran is like the size of Colombia. It's a very big country. So this is on the side of Iran. But what they need to do in order to have the same level of retaliation is to kill the head of the Zionist entity regime. And so at the moment they haven't get that objective, but we know that they managed to have some very important intelligence information of the nuclear facilities in Israel. So I guess they are analyzing it and trying to use it. Also, Iran has some kind of strategic depth in the sense that the axis of resistance is acting on behalf, not on behalf of Iran, but supporting Iran because they have a common project, a common anti-imperialist project. So you have Yemen. Also, we have seen some drone strike from the Islamic resistance in Iraq. Maybe Hezbollah will be involved, but they have been also really greatly damaged by the Zionist entity. But they have that strategic depth. So the big question also would be, will the United States be involved in the conflict? Donald Trump, who says one thing and the contrary of it in the same sentence, said that he will help Israel, but would they follow in that help? And what would be the importance of the United States strikes, or even would they strike? We don't know yet. But what has to be recalled is that Iran has begun its strike. It's still not on the same level of the damages that has been imposed to the Iranian revolution. And we will see on the next days what would happen. Israel is aiming to prolong the war. They have seen 14 days. I don't know if they have the military capacity to do it because they are on the multiple fronts, but it's only the beginning, I guess.
And Ermelinda, just one more question to further understand the situation. What you were saying was very clear to understand some of the main points at stake here. What is the role of the international community or the international organization in all of this? We have seen an escalation after escalation of violence and no calls, no General Assembly votings. We were also hearing before today from Rafael Grossi from the International Atomic Energy saying that no nuclear facilities should be ever targeted. And of course, that is completely the opposite of what Israel has done. And there seems to be no consequence or no real effect that those organizations can have on the matter. What do you see the international organizations are able to do in the coming days or in the coming years with this escalation of violence?
Well, we have to understand that the international institutions represent the force correlation. And of course, the imperialist countries, as United States are at the head of them, are really powerful in those institutions. So, of course, the Security Council of the United Nations will be discussing the case. They will maybe take a decision, but it would not change anything. We know that, for example, the United Nations has been voting against the blockade to Cuba since so many decades, and it hasn't changed a thing. So international institutions are interesting because it permits to Iran to have a voice, to have discussions, to make its diplomacy, but on the concrete actions it would have known. So what we are to expect is a new kind of national and international stabilization of it. And we know that Russia, China has been greatly evolving in the force they can develop in the international relations. We have seen China, for example, making a great diplomacy, allowing Iran and Saudi Arabia to discuss and to reopen in diplomatic relations, and they had to do it mostly secretly because they didn't want the United States to oppose to it. So we see some results from the new framework that is developing within the BRICS, within the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, and I think that the only way we can stabilize the region is with the involvement of those new multilateral and multipolar organization. The traditional international institution will help a little bit, but I think that we have more to see to look more to the multipolar organizations that can really bring stability in the region.
Definitely, we'll continue to look forward to that. Thank you so much, Ermelinda, for joining us here in teleSUR English to analyze this ongoing situation.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
That was Ermelinda Malcott, international analyst, giving her opinion and her take.
Is happening live at this moment. teleSUR English is bringing you all the latest informations on this escalation. And now let's go with Eduardo Meneses, who is politologist, to help us to understand, to go a little bit deeper on what is going on and what the world is witnessing at this hour. Hi, Eduardo, and thank you very much for joining us.
Hi, thank you very much for the invitation. Always pleased to be here.
So this is a crucial moment for the Middle East. What do you think that this how could impact the ongoing negotiations between Iran and the United States regarding the nuclear program of Iran?
Well, the first thing is we need to mention that Iran already said that they were going to suspend the negotiation that was going to happen this weekend, which is obvious after the attack that just happened. We know that even if the United States were not directly involved in the physical attack, there has been a lot of coordination, obviously. We can already see that with the latest report that was stated by the International Organization of Atomic Energy, where United States and all the Western allies were pushing for a report denouncing the fact that Iran may be enriching or maybe building, let's say, atomic bombs, which it has been totally claimed that is as a false allegation by the Iranian government and by other observers also in the International Organization of Atomic Energy. But that was the previous preparation moment for the ongoing attack. So we know that the United States was informed about what was going to happen. They have already been taking out some of the diplomatic personnel in the region. We have been seeing how they have been in this moment helping Israel to defend themselves from the retaliation from Iran. So we know that the United States were involved, maybe not directly in the first attack, but they were directly coordinating with Israel what has happened. So it's obvious that the answer from Iran was going to suspend was going to be to suspend these negotiations. So in the moment right now, it's difficult to see what is going to be the next diplomatic channel that can be opened. Through that, maybe there's still an opportunity to open a channel still for this weekend, but right now it is closed.
What consequences could have the insistent attacks and attempts to destroy the nuclear facilities of Iran by Israel? What consequences could it have for the civilian population of Iran?
So there are two things here. The first is the immediate consequences, which hopefully for the moment the Iranian government has announced that there is not a wide contamination out of the central of Natas and the other ones who have been bombed. There are signs of contamination inside some of those facilities, which is not directly nuclear waste, but it is other types of radial, let's say, contamination, which can be manageable till now. But definitely there's a big risk because Israel has been announcing that there's going to be a continuous attack. It's not just something that stopped right now. As you all have been seeing, the Prime Minister Netanyahu was calling citizens in Iran to rebel against the government, saying that the worst is still to come, that they're going to continue attacking. So there's a big, enormous risk on the strategy that is the criminal strategy that is being held by Israel. I say criminal because it is totally in violation of international law to attack nuclear facilities, even if those are not mainly because those are not military facilities, but there are civilian facilities only based on energy production. And in fact, this is a huge risk for the Iranian population, but also this is putting all of us at risk because it is the first time that we are seeing the direct attack and totally approved by a government in this scale against nuclear facilities, which in the context of the growing military tensions in the world is putting everyone of us at risk because suddenly what has been till now been let out of the conflict in a direct way, like nuclear facilities, are now being transformed into direct military targets. This puts obviously the people in Iran at high risk, but it is putting every territory in the world which held any nuclear facility in a context of a global war which is being framing and escalating right now. It is putting everyone at risk. And all of us, we know that a tragic incident in a nuclear facility can put in risk whole regions without only a scale of local or national scales, but really regional scales. We have already seen that in Chernobyl. We have seen already in Japan when there was the tsunami. So this is something that we must prevent as quick as possible, and we should stop and do not justify this kind of attacks.
And how would you describe the role that the U.S. is playing amid this further escalation of tensions in the Middle East?
I mean, it is obviously that the ones who are coordinating and even preparing those attacks are the United States. We know that the President Trump made a Twitter this morning saying that he was the one who gave an ultimatum to the Iranian government in order to sign the new conditions of a non-proliferation treaty. It's not a non-proliferation of weapons, obviously, for the United States. The United States do not want Israel to have atomic energy at all, even if it is civilian. And he was clearly saying, Trump, this morning, that he was the one who gave the ultimatum of 60 days to sign it, and they didn't sign it. So now it was the 61st day, and that's why this attack was happening. So it's obviously that the United States was behind and coordinating this attack, but also this has been a constant strategy from the United States. We know that the hegemonic power of the United States is being diluted day by day. The United States they are losing their hegemonic figure globally against new economic powers like China, like Russia, even the potential of Iran and other countries. And the only way they have found out to stop this lose of hegemonic power has been war. It is not something new. It has been a continuous U.S. strategy during the last decades. And unfortunately, the external policy right now and the military policy of the United States is to continue in this direction. We have seen this in three different fronts in the world. The first one is against Russia. The other one is against Iran. And we know that the support that the U.S. has given to Israel in the ongoing genocide in Palestine is exactly in this sense, is to prepare the front, the military front against Iran, and the other one is against China. And we can already see how the United States, they are preparing themselves for this direct front against China. They have already been announcing what are the plans for the next 2-3 years on preparing military this attack and this confrontation against China. So this is a historic trend that the U.S. diplomacy is following the last decades. And in fact, this is because this is the only way that the United States can try to maintain themselves and make power while they are losing in the economic, cultural influence in all the world.
The United Nations Security Council is at this moment holding a meeting regarding this situation. What do you think that the international community can really do in spite of all the situation that has been going on for the past 2 years almost regarding the genocide in Palestine, but also in this moment of escalation of tensions? What the international community can really do to halt this?
Well, unfortunately, we have already seen that the United Nations do not have any tools to confront the escalation of military tensions in the world. We have been seeing how they have been totally unable to find a way to stop the ongoing genocide in Palestine. There has been no way to find a peace path for the tensions going on between and the war going on between Russia and Ukraine. So I am not optimistic at all around the Security Council meeting. I think that what could provoke a de-escalation of the conflict right now could only be direct discussions between the real powers behind these tensions, which is Russia, China, United States, not in the scenario of the Security Council, because it hasn't been at all fruitful in its discussion. What we can expect from the discussion is a very delayed declaration and the use of the veto of the United States or China or Russia, depending the case of what are the resolutions that are being proposed. But it's very difficult to think that this time this mechanism is going to work. Unfortunately, when we do not have diplomatic channels like the UN properly working, what is the only thing left is the negotiations of the armed powers in the world, which in this moment is China, Russia, United States, some of the European countries, and only direct diplomatic channels are the ones who are going to be effective right now. It's not based on, unfortunately, it's not based on international law, it's not based on international criminal activities that can be denounced. It is based on the military power of these countries. And that's unfortunately the only thing that is standing in this context.
You are mentioning Russia and China, and I wanted to ask you this very last question regarding their stances from China and Russia regarding this situation in the Middle East. Do you think that an alliance, a multilateral, strong alliance of powerful nations such as China, Russia, could lead to divert this situation in the Middle East?
Well, unfortunately, what I would say is that, in fact, it is whether the United States want it or not, what they are doing in terms of sanctions against Russia and sanctions against Iran and the willing of reactivating some of those sanctions against Iran, what is going to provoke as a direct consequence is going to be the fact that those countries are going to get closer and closer, and with China. We already have been seeing that in many aspects, in terms of economic aspects, in terms of energetic aspects, in terms of military collaboration. And in fact, when we do not have proper diplomatic channels like the UN, when the UN is not at all, it doesn't have the legitimacy anymore to be positioned as the place where those diplomatic discussions can happen. Hopefully it would be true, but it is not the case right now. What is going to happen is that the real discussion is going to be between these military powers of each of those blocks. The bloc that you're mentioning between Russia, China, and Iran is already being reinforced day by day, and it is being reinforced not only because they are asking for the respect of international law and international legislation ruling what a country can do or not do in military contexts, but also because the sanctions from the United States, the unilateral sanctions, are economically having this effect. So this is going to happen. What needs to be seen now is how much this confrontation between economic, cultural, and military, mainly, power right now is able to reach a non-escalation point, or at the contrary, is going to open a much deeper escalation, which could be a disaster for the global peace.
Thank you, Eduardo, for your time hearing from the South and help you go into deep on this escalation of tensions in the Middle East.
Thank you very much for the invitation.
We were listening. A second wave of Iranian missiles was launched towards Israeli targets earlier on Saturday as Israeli media outlets reported several impacts in Tel Aviv and the Al-Naqab desert. According to Israeli media, a missile impacted a strategic site in southern Tel Aviv after warning sirens sounded across Israeli city settlements and occupied areas. Sirens reportedly sounded first at 1:07 a.m. local time, as settlers were cautioned to head to bomb shelters a few minutes later. There have also been reports of missile impact in Al-Quds, Haifa, Bir al-Sabeh, and the Al-Tabaraja Lake. Broadcaster Channel 13 said that 5 Israelis were injured in the latest attack, while authorities announced that 63 settlers were injured and 1 killed in the early strikes. A senior Iranian military official said that at least 150 Israeli targets were struck during the retaliatory operation against the Zionist regime, including several critical strategic military bases. Speaking on state television early Saturday, the senior advisor to the chief commander of the Islamic Revolution Guard Corps, Brigadier General Ahmad Vahidi, said the Operation True Promise 3 was successfully implemented. The military general informed that the Israeli Ministry for Military Affairs and military industrial centers were also struck during the reprisal. According to Vahidi, the operation dealt a major blow to the Zionist regime, demonstrating what he considered a heavy show of force, and emphasized that such strikes could be repeated. Several Arab countries joined the celebration of Iranian retaliatory response against Israeli targets, among them Iraq, Lebanon, Yemen, Turkey, and the Palestinian people. The Iranian response was launched after Iranian leader Ayatollah Sayyid Ali Khamenei's sentence in televised message that the Zionist aggression would not be left unpunished. The Israeli attacks killed dozens of Iranians, including senior military officers and nuclear scientists.
We go now to Ermelinda Malcote, international analyst. Ermelinda, thank you for joining us in from the South, understanding what is happening now in the Middle East. What can you tell us? What is important to keep in mind as we see these attacks unfolding at the moment?
I think the main characteristic of the attack is the objective, and the objective is to strike down the Iranian revolution, the Islamic revolution of Iran. They will tell that it's a retaliation war, that it is against the nuclear facilities of Iran, the main object is to take down the Islamic Revolution. So the next days and next week will be absolutely essential to see if the people will go in support of their revolution. We have seen manifestation on the streets, people going out in support of the revolution. So I think that it's a good sign, but really what is at stake is taking the Islamic Revolution, which is a really great anti-imperialist force in the region.
Ermelinda, just going outside the region for a minute, how does this impact the rest of the world? There's been a lot of speculation about the role that the United States is playing. Also, some contradicting statements between Marco Rubio and Donald Trump regarding their position on these recent attacks in Israel. How do you see this taking place at a wider level?